All right, guys, let's talk about personnel of the Jim Schwartz Wide Nine defense. This is probably one of the easiest personnel uh, descriptions I will ever have to do. Really, what you need are good rushers. That's the first and most important thing. Get yourself at least one superstar edge player, okay? Get yourself another edge player who's young that you can build up because I guarantee you that we will find a way to get him to become a superstar. If you're lucky and you have the Browns and you have two superstar edge guys, you're great. Okay. Obviously, if you have a really great one, obviously like Myles Garrett. Also on the interior, get yourself guys who can pass rush. I want guys who have good power moves, finesse moves, whatever it is. I'm not overly concerned with how good they are about getting off of blocks too much, to be honest with you. Um, but if you do have a nice little Tomlinson, these guys are actually pretty good. These two big guys in the middle, I've seen them play, and in real life, they're actually pretty good. These guys are more run stuffers, but you don't really have to put a lot of effort into your D tackles. But I would definitely go for an athlete. And I guarantee you, in today's Madden, D tackles do make more plays than D ends. So one of them could become a superstar, especially in the scheme that we're running with the wide nine. Okay, with the way we're going to run our front system. Okay, so that would be it. Again, get yourself at least one superstar D end. Okay, then the other one, just make sure he's athletic. He will become a superstar. Same thing on the inside. Go get yourself two guys that are pretty athletic, who have good. When I say athletic, I'm talking about like 70 something speed, all right, acceleration also in the 70s, and then has that potential to be a potential 80, 85 power move guy. Okay, that's what we're looking for. And we're looking for obviously defensive tackles who are, 290 to 300. That's about what you expect. You can be a little bit heavier as long as you don't lose your athleticism. Then you have your linebacker. So this depends on what kind of system we're going to run here. If you believe in running more three linebacker systems, that's fine. But I'm only looking for definitely one linebacker who's really athletic, okay, and probably two. So two guys that can run and hit, traditional um, off the ball, bubble backers. So you want guys with good speed, good hit power, good coverage ability. A lot of times these guys are going to be pass cover guys. Okay. So in this defense, I would say, JWK would probably JOK. I'm going to say, that's what I'm going to call him. He's probably the best guy that I would want on my team. I feel like he would fit the idea of what we're looking for 89 speed. I'm not going to go all the way over, but I think his hit power is pretty good. You want guys to show up and when they get the chance. Coverage skills, you want good zone, decent man, and then once we get to there go tackling and hit power 85. Perfect. So 85 hit power, that's what we're looking for. So you need two of those guys, okay? And then if you happen to have a third, you can always probably find somebody who's athletic on the free agent waiver wire. You don't have to spend a lot of resources on that guy because honestly, you're probably going to be in nickel defense the majority of the game. You're probably not going to be in three linebacker defense that much, okay? Now, the next most important part of this defense is going to be your corners, okay? You don't need to have abilities on your corners because of the coverage system that we play, cover one, cover three, and cover four. It's pretty good. Corners can really live in that world and play well, but you definitely need two corners with speed. You're going to be in a lot of man-to-man or match coverage, and you want guys that can match up. You don't want to have to worry about, oh, this guy's too slow, okay? Unless he has abilities, then you could take a guy who's slow, who has abilities. And to me, slow is 88, 89 minimum. But I'm really looking for 94 speed guys. You need man-to-man press corners that can play press when you want. We're going to mix that into the defense. We're going to make people's lives hard in coverage. But honestly, if you don't have press corners, you can get away with playing off-man corners too. All right? Just make sure they're athletic. Your safety system, you really need three safeties in this defense. We're going to play a lot of big nickel type of defenses against some of the 12 personnels and 21 personnels that come out in slot formations all day. So you kind of want to have that. Also, if you do want to jump into, we'll talk about it later, the penny package, which is where you put corner at safety. If you can't do that in your league, you want to have an athletic safety. But you definitely want to have probably your free safety be a guy that's like a hybrid kind of corner. Okay, he maybe was an X corner, or he has a guy who has 90 speed. We'll talk more about that later, but we want that free safety that might be in the middle of the field to have range to cover from sideline to sideline, be able to play the ball in the air, and also be able to potentially go play some man coverage. So this could be one of your better players. Your strong safety types, 88 speed is fine. That's about what I expect in today's Madden. You don't need a guy who's 90 speed there, but they need to be like almost like linebackers. So your two strong safeties here should be run and hit linebacker types. They're just lighter, okay? We're going to be playing a lot of free safety packages where they're going to be close to the ball. They're going to have to fit up on the run and cover tight ends, okay? But that's a pretty easy setup. I think this setup for me, the one thing I love about it is when you guys go into the draft process, you're going to really see a lot of these type of players, I think, around. At least it used to be that way. It used to be able to find guys that can run and hit pretty well on defense at linebacker, and there's probably plentiful safeties that fit into the mold that I said, where you could have two strong safeties on your, that you draft. Okay, you don't need to have tremendous speed at the safety spot, but if you do find somebody with 90 speed, of course, it's better, right? So that's about it. And then when it comes to the pass rushers, again, if you're in the draft, go look at anybody who's, look at, don't forget, you can look at the edge players who are outside linebacker pass rushers and then change them to defensive ends for you. All right. But that's the setup. I'm using the 49ers. That's my favorite team in real life. Obviously, they play the same defense. Their defense is really good. I traded for I basically said offensively, I got what I got, which obviously the Niners have a really good offense, but I didn't put a lot of stock into finding a new quarterback, which is what they need in Madden, honestly, if you played with the original version. But the point is, I sold the farm to go get corners. So I went out and I will show it to you right now, but I went out and got, the Green Bay corner, Jair Alexander, sold the farm for him, multiple first round picks the next couple of years, have a solid corner that can just hold up in my defense, allows me to just play more cover one than I ever have. Okay. Went out and got Gilmore as well, older player, again, a little slower, but Stephon Gilmore, he can play, that type of activity. I went out in another league and got Marlon Humphrey for the same team. I had the Niners in two teams. So those are the type of players you need at least one of those players. Do whatever you got to do to get one of those players. That's going to make the defense pop. But I'll just say this. I did play the first season in this kind of hybrid style of defense. I kind of ran this defense with a little bit more coverage options, but I did run it with my best corner being like an 85 or something like that. And the rest of the corners were just fast. They weren't very good, and we still had like the number two defense in the league. So the defense is going to be good no matter what. But if you really want it to be the best of your league, make sure you get those players that I just mentioned. All right. I'll see you when we start talking more about the rest of the overview of the defense from a construction standpoint, blueprint standpoint, and then obviously we'll start getting into the run front stuff. That'll be the first part, and then we'll get into the coverages and blitzes, part 2 and 3 later on. All right. Talk to you later. Hey everybody, welcome to the Jim Schwartz Wide 9 defense. Just a little background that I've been running this defense in Madden for about maybe 6, 7, 8 years, maybe longer. And my interpretation of the defense and really started running it ever since I worked with Jim Schwartz back in 2014. And I was the assistant DB coach for the Buffalo Bills. And I worked closely with him with a lot of the stuff, the creation of a lot of the different coverages we did back then. We were the first team of his that ran match cover three and match quarters, really. Actually, he did run match quarters before coming over to Buffalo, but match cover three was something he wanted to do. So we added that to the defense and just wanted to give you guys, pretty much how I play Madden. You go back and watch my games, from the past really 6, 7 years, I've always tried to get back into a 4-3 front with the wide nine. I always thought the wide nine just looked different and it was effective. It's had its years where the wide nine front was actually one of the best fronts to get pressure naturally on the quarterback. It's not that way anymore, but I do have ways to make the front better. Okay, so I'll put overlays on this and you'll get a chance to see really which of these fronts that we're looking at right here is the same as Madden. But really, the jet front is the wide front, okay? And it really is noted by those wide nine techniques on the defensive ends, okay? Those guys will align really almost a full man outside of the tight end. And if there is no tight end, it would just pretend there's a tight end there and just align off of a ghost tight end. And a lot of people think that this front is all about, rushing the quarterback, and it's not good versus the run. But I'm here to tell you that that's not the case. The people that know how to coach this front the right way understand that if your linebackers can fit quickly and downhill right now, and also the safeties, I think that's the one thing that a lot of people who run this front who may not have full experience running it don't really fully understand that this front is reliant on playing a lot of 8-man front football, meaning that you're going to have a safety up in the box. Okay. And a lot of times you might get a safety standing right there where a linebacker would have been. Okay. A lot of times you might get from motion a safety having to come down and play an interior B gap, which is very unlike a lot of the 3-4 defenses that are out there. All right. So I'm saying all that to say if you teach your safeties to fit like linebackers, this defense is very effective. If you teach your safeties and if you teach your linebackers to continue to work downhill right now, they could be very good at stopping the run. It's when they sit back and wait and read too much and don't just follow their initial keys, that's when they get in trouble. Okay? But the jet front is what we're going to use a good majority of the time that we're here in Madden using the Jim Schwartz defense. The next one would probably be the overshade that's right below it. So I would say this front right here, a lot of people don't realize, but the wide 9 front of Jim Schwartz a lot of times takes that defensive end and puts some inside leverage right here. Sorry about that. Inside leverage of the tight end and actually puts him in what he calls a 6-eye. Okay. Some people call it a 7, depending on the formation. Okay. So when you get time, a lot of times sometimes people will put 2 tight ends here, right? And when that happens, a lot of times the front will reduce down to not playing a wide 9 and playing more of a 6-eye. In Madden, that is your over, um, what is it called? 4-3 over defense. That's what it is. Just a 4-3 over. Okay. And that's what is in Madden. Okay. In Madden also, there is what he calls his regular over front. Oh, let me go back on the shade. I'm sorry. So the shade has to do with the tackle also aligning in what we call a shade technique, or some people will say a zero shade, okay? Meaning that he's lined up on the center, but he's on the edge of the center. Compared to the jet front up here, where you have a 2-eye, which means that tackle is on the inside leverage of the guard. Okay, that's the difference between the two. So that would be again the 4-3 wide up top, and then below would be the 4-3 over. All right. So the over front over here on the right would be more of the big nickel over G front. Okay. So that big nickel over G front gives us the 6-eye and then also gives us that 2-eye. Okay. So that's the difference. So those 3 fronts are the main fronts that we're going to work with. Okay. Um, Out of both base and nickel. Okay. So the big nickel over G obviously is only a nickel front, but we do have 2 versions of the jet and the overshade out of both base and out of both sub personnel. Now he also does run some underfront, so we're going to use that in certain situations. His 46 front, he will reduce the defensive end down to a 3 technique, so that can be used as well. All right, and then race is another version of um, of a wide front when you call nickel and you call nickel wide, some of the fronts naturally align this way. Actually, a lot of the fronts naturally align this way, but I won't spoil it for you. But we're actually going to change it so that that doesn't happen all the time. It's not going to be 2-3 techniques when we run our base jet front. It's going to look more like that. Okay. But we can also leave it like this. And then lastly, the odd front. He does run odd front defenses. Okay. This is just a generic odd front where you have a tackle lined up over the center and you have 2-5 techniques, but he does also have hub type front, which will look kind of sort of like this up here, right? And have another defensive end coming off the edge. In the Madden world, that's just the 3-3 3-3 cub. So he does have that as well. So The Jim Schwartz defense, when you watch it on Sundays with the Cleveland Browns, you will see components of all of this mixed together. Okay. So the defense is not, even though it's called the wide nine defense, it's more of the personality of the defense. And really, what the wide nine means to me is defensive players that get after it, guys that get up the field and sack the quarterback, obviously, was penetration in the backfield versus the run, and they are an attacking style 4-3 defense. Okay. So that is the personality of the wide nine. The namesake just comes from those defensive ends that align a little bit wider than usual. Okay. And they align in that nice little 4-point stance. That's also the trademark of that stance and that defense. And they get after it. But Jim Schwartz is not the type of person that makes everybody have to play the same way. If you were a 3-4 outside linebacker and you were used to rushing in a 2-point stance like Zadarius Smith does, he will allow you to stand up and rush off the edge. He doesn't care. All right. So as long as you are just running the defense the way he has it built, everything is all good. So what we do now in the overview is go on to the coverage section, look at the different coverages that are in his playbook from back then, talk about how that's going to mesh with Madden, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so let's do a brief overview of the coverages, and then obviously we're going to spend some time on this throughout the video. Cover one cut is cover one hole in Madden, and that really is the main coverage that he hangs his hat on. He comes from the Belichick tree. He comes from that tree, working with Belichick and Saban back in Cleveland. That's where he got his start in the NFL. From there, all those guys love cover one, what they call rats. Okay. He calls it cut, but it does the exact same thing as it does with rat. All right. We'll talk about the details of that. But really in Madden, it really only is kind of used as a way to play banjo coverage. We'll talk about that later on. And then also as a way to just get an extra, just to get that free player sitting in the middle of the field. So it's hard to throw over the middle of the field. Okay. Short. And then obviously you have a post safety deep. Cover one, everybody else is playing man to man. Best coverage probably in Madden or none. Okay. So it works out that way, 2024 Madden. Okay. Now, the other coverages he likes to run would be, I'm just going to follow the order and tell you the reasons why he runs them. Cover two, all right? He uses cover two mostly on third and long, third down, just spot drop, or tamper two, I should say, really. Okay. And then as the numbers go along, just so you understand the system, cover two is the base coverage at a base personnel. And then when we get into sub personnel, if we're playing nickel, dollar, dime, whatever it might be, anytime there's a fifth DB on the field, he calls it 52. Okay, so it's just the same defense, just with a different personnel. All right. Obviously, the same thing with 1 and 51 cut. Now we also have 52 drop, which is in Madden as well. 3-man rush, 52. All right. And 52 nasty, which I have to go find. I think there's a new version of that in Madden as well, which is really just sending a nickel or sending a linebacker to give a simulated pressure look. You're only still sending 4, but it looks like maybe that you're sending 5. Okay. Now the next one, 3 strafe and 3X are big. Those are the ones, this is the first year he ran this, which is really a replication of what the Seattle Seahawks do. Okay. Trying to run their style of defense of playing match coverage, cover 3. All right. So the rules on strafe and X are pretty simple, but we can go through it when we get down the line. It's pretty much just the safety rotation. Strafe, 3 strong, safety rotate strong, and X, 3 away from the probably the tight end. But we're going to rotate to the X receiver. Okay. And we'll talk more about that later. Then also there's 53Y. So now we're talking about calling cover 3, calling it from the nickel defense. And pretty much what 53Y is a double call, okay, which is really either cover 3 buzz seam or cover 3 seam, depending on what the formations are. Okay. Really, the way we taught the safety was basically safety, rotate to the tight end. Okay. If it's 2x2, when the safety rotates down, it's going to turn into 3 seam. Okay. It will look like 3 sky, but it's 3 seam, 2x2. Post man in the, single high look. But if it's 3x1 formations, The safety would rotate between the nickel and the linebacker, and it would become three buzz seam, right? Now, in the Madden world, you know what the formation is, so you could just call three buzz to 3-by-1 and call three seam to 2-by-2, and you're all set, all right? Then now we get into the quarters cover six world. So a lot of people are under the impression that really only a few people run quarters. A lot of people don't realize that even Rex Ryan ran quarters. Quarters has been run really ever since Jimmy Johnson brought it, really made it famous with the matching principles back in the late 80s. Okay. But in general, everybody's run some sort of quarters. Now, Jim at this time ran cover six as his primary way of teaching it. So the way you have DBs, and I don't want to go into too much detail until we get to the coverage, is you usually teach them play cover six and then check to quarters if the formation tells you to check to quarters. Okay. If you can't check to quarters, then just stay in cover six. Basically, it's an adjustment to maybe a tough formation. Let's just say a team came out an empty and you didn't want to be in cover six, then we would just play quarters. Okay, that's one way of teaching it. Or the other way of teaching it is we are a quarters team first, but yet we use cover six as a complement, right? Certain formations, let's say 3-by-1, and there's a really good a really good solo X receiver. Now we just want to play some cover six to that. So it's just about how you teach it. But in Jim's defense, even though this is the playbook from back from almost 10 years ago, we ran quarters a lot. Okay. Trust me. It became pretty much our second or third call after cover one and after cover three. Okay. So quarters is part of the system, quarters will be part of the playbook, and we're going to run it. But he likes to call cover six or 56, especially on third down. Okay, that's going to be his big baby. He's going to be his coverage that he likes a lot. Now, if he wants to play split safety match coverage, 55 is two man. So again, only in nickel, he ran 55. He didn't call it at a base. 57 is what I will show you guys later on, a way to play double teams, a way to double players or play bracket coverage, okay? Some people only use it in the red zone, all right? Some people like Belichick and whatnot only use it in the red zone. People like Jim Schwartz and Wade Phillips use it also on third and medium in the middle of the field, okay? So we'll talk about that as we go along. But that's pretty much it. And it's probably really one of the more simple coverage plans that you can have, but it's really relatable to Madden, and is the reason why I try to run this type of style of coverage as well. Heavy cover one, heavy quarters, and heavy cover three seam. That's pretty much what I do most of the time, with, of course, the adjustments that go with it. And as we go through each coverage plan, I'm going to talk about where you're in quarters, you play box, and all the things that we've been talking about in my Patreon and what I've showed also on YouTube a little bit. There's different techniques, different change ups that you can use in your toolbox that makes each coverage even enhance even more. So that's the great thing about not running a lot of different coverages, is that you can have a lot of different little nuanced change ups to each coverage. All right. The next thing we do is we'll take a look at the ready list that I have ready right now. It will be updated also later on, and we'll talk about exactly how that works. Okay, so here's what we call the ready sheet. This is a copy that I use as a template. Jim Schwartz's ready sheet wasn't like this. This is from Wade Phillips, and I use this template, and that's what I give out to the guys in the coordinators crew to use the Excel document if you want. But here's just a picture of it. So what we have here is our different fronts and coverages mixed together, all right, to come out as plays. Okay, so starting off on the left-hand side, what we have is the 4-3 front. Okay, these aren't all the plays in the playbook, guys, but this is just the beginning of how I have it created. I really want to make it nice and neat, nice and simple. Okay, we have the over wide front and the over front. Okay, which for him is the jet front and then the over shade. Okay, now base personnel. So we have three linebackers on the field, four DBs, four D linemen. Okay, so we're gonna play one cut out of these two different play calls in Madden. One spy doesn't give you the cut action that you would love, that we know about, but it does give us just a cover one defense from the rest of the DBs and everything like that. So that's what we want. It also does help us when it comes to some of the alignment issues you can get versus certain formations. So we're going to use basically those two plays to try to replicate one clip from this, okay? And then also, I didn't put it in there, but Jim Schwartz also does run a package called Penny. So if you had listened to any of the Wade Phillips defense, he had a package called Single, which all that does is take um, one of your safeties off the field at a base and puts in another corner. Okay, so you're playing with three corners and one safety, and your rest of your defense is still your base personnel. And what that does is it allows you to play your base fronts, one hole in this case, to teams that come out in 11 personnel and try to spread you out to run the ball. But yet now you could just counter back with good run defense. Okay, so we're talking detail about that, very much a lot of detail of how you can get that to work for you. But that's the beginning of the defense. And then the color codes go black, it's just four-man rush defenses. Red would be five-man rush defense, man defense. Blue is zone defense, mostly spot drop, okay? And then green are your zone match defenses, your split safety zone match, and also your single high safety cover three seam, all right? So there aren't a lot of calls here, as you see, but we can create some more defenses out of these calls, okay? So for example, if I call cover one robber, we can play robber, right? But really in the 4-3 world, we're working our what I call 10 blitzes, which is basically just one linebacker or one safety blitz. Okay, so we're going to use the coverage of the robber coverage and try to create situations where you're bringing the strong safety off the edge. You're bringing the Sam linebacker off the edge. You're blitzing somebody, okay? And whoever was the robber would just play man on that guy, okay, if he's not blitzing. So we also have cover four quarters, cover six, and you will see four, and you will see four zone. So something else that he did that I didn't go into was play zone drop coverage sometimes. So he would call cover four, but it wouldn't be match quarters. It would be zone drop quarters. So in Madden, you would just turn match off, or you could play the sticks. You could do either or. But he would mix those two together, especially on third down. All right. Then we also have our underfront, which we will use in certain situations. We have our one. This is under is the one time that we can get into out of base personnel three seam, which would be 3x for him. Okay, and then from there we have some fire zones. So that is going to be your base defense or your, as he calls, penny defense. Okay, then we're going to spend most of our time here on the nickel and the big nickel formations, these two, because honestly, today's football requires us to be in these formations from what we're getting from the offense. And now we're at a point where if you face a team that comes out in 21 personnel, but they try to spread you out with a whole bunch of formations and putting fullbacks and running backs and as receivers and putting receivers in the backfield, this nickel and big nickel package just takes care of all that crap. It takes care of all the motion plays. It's just so much better, especially when you use cover one and cover three seam as your base calls. Okay. It allows you to line up and play football and worry about tackling people instead of worried about getting a line. Okay. So we have cover one hole, right? 51 cut. That's going to be the call there. Then we have, so just again, and what's in parentheses is how Jim calls it. All right. So we're going to have one linebacker blitz, which is already a middle linebacker blitz that's already set up for you. Okay. Then we're going to have down here, we're going to have a little bit of the combination of cover three seam. So I put these three together because they kind of look alike. So cover three seam is 3X for him. Okay. We will get into playing some cover three buzz as well, which is not up here for some reason. I don't know why it's not up here right now. That's on me. I will add that obviously later on when we get to cover 353Y. But in general, we have one robber press. Again, he doesn't really play robber defense. That's not something that he does. But we will use the robber defense here and play cover 57, which I talked about being that combination coverage where you want to double team people. Cover two man, okay? That's another coverage that he runs, obviously, on third down. And then we have 52, Tampa 2, okay? So that's just going to be Tampa 2. We have quarters, we have cover six, and then we have some zone pressures. A lot of the zone pressures that he likes, his personality, is he likes to bring those cover two trap zone pressures. That's kind of his thing. Okay. We'll fill out this more with our mugs, our odd fronts, and we get through this once we kind of just shore up exactly what he's doing when it comes to some of his pressure looks in today's football. The big nickel over G, guys, you see how it's almost identical to the wide and the over. So again, we're working out of these three fronts. Really, we'll talk about this more once I show you all the different fronts and we go on the field. And there's a reason why we use each of these fronts. That's all you got to really memorize is when to use each front, and you're going to have success. I promise you. But from a coverage standpoint, it's pretty much the same coverages coming out of each front. Okay. Same thing with the dime. Okay. Now we have another another DB on the field, which you need in Madden to match up against some of the formations that you get. But look at the coverage plan. It's pretty much the same thing. Okay. This is the one time I put 3 buzz in there, and I'll talk about that really. I think I know why I did that. I'll talk about 3 buzz because 3 buzz is the opposite of what the way he plays it. But this is the one way we could play 3 buzz that gives him the way that Jim Schwartz plays it. Okay. So we'll talk about that more later. Auxiliary, we just have 4-4, bear. Those are some of the things that he's going to run on short yardage. Okay. He will put 4 linebackers on the field if you come out with 1 receiver. And then his goal line is a 6'2", 60 base. Okay. So that's the ready sheet, which is just all the plays, kind of sort of how we're going to kind of construct this thing. This is not a play call sheet that talks about down and distance so much. This is more about the game plan and how it works. I'll talk to you guys later when we hit the field. Okay, let's talk about the different fronts that we're going to use. And I'm going to start with this base front, even though I have a feeling that most of you guys are not going to be running this base front. But let me just show you something about running 4-3 over wide, cover 1, which is really the main run stopping defense. And also really good versus the pass and how it works, okay? I'm going to use this linebacker here against this stretch play, okay? And this play is going to get eaten up multiple different ways, but mainly by me coming through clean just by running through the C gap, okay? Or the ball will cut back there, as you see. But in general, people want to run this play and do what? Run through that C gap. And the reason why this play is getting eaten up is because the targeting system is making it so that the center and the right guard are the ones that are assigned to block me. Okay, the fullback is trying to go out and block anybody off the edge. I just happen to run into him. But if I just even wait a little bit and then go, okay, the guard did get to me there. So you don't want to wait a little bit. Let's do that again. That's a really good guard I'm going up against. All right. But if you want to get up in the backfield and just really anticipate this run, because everybody runs stretch, really, especially on first down, you're going to see a lot of people do this. Okay. So I've given you enough examples. Nothing I'm doing is ever glitchy and never 100%, guys. But this is one of the ones that, out of this particular formation, you can get really good stretch defense. And the reason why, again, is the guard and the guard and center are assigned to double team and work their way up to me. But with this 3 technique being so wide, okay, and then also with me being so aggressive, the guard and center can never get to me as long as I'm hitting this thing downhill. All right. Now, the other reason why is because this player over here, our safety, is aligned pretty much in the box. So this is a situation where because he's close to the box, the offensive line is counting him as pretty much a linebacker. Okay, they're counting him like the Sam linebacker, and they're going to work the tight end and the tackle are going to work their double team up to the safety, and they're going to work from that angle. And sometimes the safety actually does come clean as well because it's hard for the tackle to get to him. All right. Now, if you don't want to use this player, you can actually just single linebacker blitz him, which I'm going to talk about more and more in this defense. We're going to do this a lot where we're going to send one linebacker to areas that we feel that the ball may be going. Okay. So this is something that's going to be unique to his style of defense, but really it's also the way that Jim Schwartz plays his defense. He does blitz a lot when it comes to sending single pressure, okay, especially out of cover 1. We're sending 5-man pressure. So if you do this same thing here, okay, this player is still going to react the same way and blitz through that gap. It's actually very funny because the blitz angle by me just manually, you see his drop, his man coverage is here. By me just pressing X and then pressing down on the right stick, his blitz angle goes right to where we want him to go. So that's a really nice thing, and it kind of hits up very lovely. So this is something just to think about against that particular run. You don't have to make any other adjustments. That's pretty cool. All right. Now the coverages in this base defense, they don't give you cover three match out of wide. So that's why, we're jumping to more of the nickel, the big nickel, and all this stuff here to get us some of that three seam. Okay, that's what we need next. Now, let me just talk about one more thing, though, which is going to be a little bit outside the box when it comes towards the Jim Schwartz scheme, what you see in real life. But this is Madden, and we are at a little bit of a disadvantage playing with a four down team because of Golden Secret really comes back to the problem about playing a four down line is that if you only send four players, okay, in general, the defense is not as strong against the run. It doesn't put pressure on the blockers like sending five does. And that to me is the big thing about running a 3-4 defense, like the Wade Phillips scheme. If you send five guys, if you notice in that defense, there's usually five guys that are rushing the quarterback. That by itself also helps against the run. It helps fit the gaps a lot more clean. And this defense is not the same, okay? And if you don't want to send an extra guy on every play, okay, there's one thing that I've learned because I've been running this defense for about 8 years, okay? This style of defense, because of obviously my time working with Jim Schwartz. I feel like he's one of the best guys I've ever worked for. But just by experimenting and learning some of the things about Madden, I've learned this over the years, and it's kind of a way that it doesn't make it 100% sim, but it does help in the Madden world, and I'm going to explain to you what it is. If you take your line and you pinch them, right, down from this wide front, right, we're going to do this a lot actually when it comes to some of our fronts. What it does is changes it to not a wide front necessarily, but more of just what we saw in the playbook, which was the over front, right? So you're going to get kind of this front up technique. He's not really inside, but these DNs are a little bit tighter. So you lose that part. But the key of this whole thing is getting these 2-2 eyes, okay? Or 2-2 techniques. These guys right here cause havoc and havoc. I don't know why they do. Okay, but these guys, when they're lined up at 2-2 eyes, is some of the best stuff that's in Madden. The only thing that's better is coming out in the odd 3-4 odd front, having the four eyes. Okay, what they do is they eat up the blockers like crazy. Okay, and you could just run defense and just play ball just like this. It's fine. Okay, however, one of the other adjustments that I would do with the same defense is to spread the linebackers. Okay, and it's not about spreading both linebackers really, but that's just an easy way to do it. It's just it's an easy command on your sticks. You use your directional pad, you press to the right, all right, and then you go up with the left stick and it spreads the linebackers. Really, what the main linebacker that we're trying to worry about is this one here. Okay, because this player is now tighter, your defensive end, he's now more head up. Okay, we need this player, we need the outside linebacker over here to potentially be able to do what? To fit into the gap that he should be in, right? He just fits a lot better. Or if it's a run right at him, he's coming from an outside end angle. Okay, so hammer technique, right? Boxing it. This is something that the Jim Schwartz scheme does is they want these linebackers to hit their gaps. They basically want your linebackers to align in your gaps, okay, and to be able to hit it from outside in if you are an outside linebacker, okay? Make the ball go back to the middle. So by just doing those two things, you can actually run this defense, and I'm going to tell you this right now, worth the price of admission, in my opinion, really against almost anything. Okay, this just squeezing the line and spreading the linebackers, and really the linebacker that you want to make sure is spread is this guy right here, the guy that's to the tight end side. Okay, that's the guy that counts. That can fix a lot of problems. Now, what I do when I run this defense, you're seeing me do this a lot. I will user this backer here, okay, and I will play in this weak side B gap. Okay, now I'm going to use the word that I'm going to use a lot. It's going to be a lot of overlap. So remember this. It's called the open side B gap. Open means on the offensive line, if there's no tight end, Okay, that's called the open side. So over here, there's a tight end, so this is called the closed side. Okay, so this is the closed side of the front of the defense of the offense. I'm sorry, and this is the open side. Okay, so this is the gap that you want to stand in. Okay, right here. This is the reason why I'll explain it later on. Is a lot of times when runs come this way, you want to fit it fast. You don't want to be sitting back here waiting for it to happen. It's the reason why I like to use this guy because to me this is one of the weaknesses in the defense. It's this weak side B gap. And I need to make sure that I can fit it as quickly as possible. Just going back again, the Schwartz scheme needs linebackers that can fit fast. So you're either going to have to do it one of two ways. You're going to have to take one guy and blitz him yourself, right? Blitz him, manually blitz him, or you're going to have to use her and come down and start playing some gaps hard. Or you could do both. Okay. Now you'll see me do that sometimes. I would take a linebacker and blitz this dude and also make sure that I fit this run hard. Okay. So this is just an inside zone play right here coming weak. But in general, this play right here, just by me, I won't even blitz anybody. I'm just gonna get pinch the line, right? I like to use this guy. So again, I'll move. You'll see me move around with this guy. So as soon as you move this guy, he's not gonna move when I spread the linebackers, because I'm on him and I moved him. So again, I'm gonna use the directional pad, go to the right, and then I'm gonna go up with the left stick, and you see how that linebacker over there spreads. And the reason why, again, we need to do that is because we pinch the line. All right. So I used to sometimes actually pinch the D line and actually have them slant inside, but I don't do that anymore. I just squeeze them down or pinch them, whatever you want to call it, and we play ball from there. And a lot of times, this guy right here, this 2-eye or this 3-eye, just causes havoc. Okay. So let me just run this play. It's a lot better if I can come up and play this. But what happens in this defense in general, guys, is that the outside linebackers usually don't get blocked. Like, let me just show you. I'm gonna spread both of them. It looks a little funky here, but I'm just gonna let it go. All right, I'm gonna run the play. A lot of times, for whatever reason, the outside linebackers don't get blocked. That's the reason why I'd like to play with that backside guy. He goes too wide, and I'm running one of the best plays I think in the game, which is just halfback blast right here. All right, he goes too wide. So that's the reason why I like to use him. All right. I want to make sure that I can fit this gap. Even if I fit it kind of slow, all right. Usually one of those linebackers are going to just scrape over the top and come unblocked. Okay. And again, the reason why it happens, that one was the middle linebacker. The reason why it usually happens is because these two eyes are really just making it hard for double teams to get off and linebackers are running free. But if you've ever watched the Cleveland Browns defense, all right, it looks a lot like this, man. Like guys are running fast and hard, and they're just making sure that they're fitting these gaps very quickly. And to me, that's the key of the defense, all right? So, in general, that's how we're going to rock when it comes to using that front. Now, that's I formation that I showed you. Let me just show you something else here, guys. If you run that same defense versus an I strong play and they run stretch, you will not be able to hit it the same. Okay. So if I try to do the same thing here, I lied to you on that first play, but usually the first play doesn't matter in practice mode. Let's do it again. All right. Against the wide, I don't know why it's screwing me right now, but usually versus any type of offset back, usually the tackle does a better job and gets to me, but he's not doing it there. Okay. In general, I've noticed that. Or versus a formation that would be two tight end set. All right. Two tight end set here. Let's go back to like ace pair. Right. I don't think I have a stretch play right now out of it. Let me see if I have a wing slot. Same thing. Two tight ends on the same side. Okay. This now here, they do a much better job. Not only is the linebacker really tight, but they do a better job, obviously, of blocking now because everybody's in the line of scrimmage. So the double team is going to be what? The tackle and the guard are going to work up to me. And I'm going to get a face full of tackle versus a two tight end set like that, or what I call a YY, okay, a wing tight end. So how do you combat this? Well, you can use the trick I told you about, right? You can just kind of squeeze your line, play with the backside guy, and spread your linebackers. That can help because you see how now you see how this linebacker went so wide. So he's going to take on the same guy, but he's going to take on that tackle with outside leverage, and he's going to box it. So that's going to help, right? And I'm going to come back on the backside and see what happens. All right. So that's one way of doing it. Let me just do it again here. All right. Spread the linebacker, right? Again, just his alignment is going to help him just at least be able to be in good shape. But there's a little gap in there. That one got gashed. Okay. Everything here is not 100%, but it's damn near good enough to get you to the next step. But if you do get a YY tight end or even an offset back, I would definitely put it in the same category. This is when I go to the over front. Okay. So the over front here gives you a different alignment with automatically with your defensive end. Okay. He's now inside leverage of this tight end. So that makes that gap a little bit harder to run through. All right. Now you also have this player here. Okay. Now I would not user him in this situation because you probably don't want to user him in pass coverage. Okay. But again, the way he's lined up right here, he's still kind of vulnerable to the ball bouncing outside. But we can just run it like this, but I probably would also spread the linebackers here too. So let me just move my guy here because I got this B gap, right? And then I'm just going to spread the linebackers and put them outside. So you see how right now, right, how it just looks better. Okay, and this is going to be interesting when we get to some of the nickel front stuff because the nickel front actually lines up like this naturally without us doing anything. Okay, but this in general is what we're going to do out of base defense. And this play right here, I don't know why that linebacker ran back inside. Just saw that right there. You know, he should just stay outside, but this is a lot better. All right, let me just do it real quick without any type of adjustment. Just wanted to see where the ball would go. Again, the ball is not really bouncing out wide. Some people will take this play and make it go wider, but I think right now, actually, I'm calling. Well, this is a regular stretch. All right. Again, I would just again sit in here, sit in his weak side B gap, spread your linebackers. Okay, so that guy gets outside, and usually he fits it from a better angle. Okay, way better than it would be if he was obviously lined up tighter. All right. So that's my answer versus tight ends that are on the same side. Okay. That's how I would play it. Now, if we ever get a formation where there's two tight ends and they're both together, I mean, they're both opposite of each other, the over front in general is not one of my favorite fronts. Okay. I would go back into the over wide front. And this is where, the coverage standpoint wise, I would start looking at some easy quarters coverage or some cover six or some cover two. Okay. I wouldn't necessarily be in cover one unless you have to. But let me just go into quarters. Now, the quarters that I talked about, the reason why it's really important to use that, I'm going to call it that adjustment that I talked about with pitching your D line, is because if you call quarters, for some reason they give you 2-3 techniques in this defense. I don't know why. So again, this is where it kind of started. It was like, okay, well, we got to get these guys aligned better. So we're going to pinch the D line like this, all right? And now we're good. Now here, again, spreading your linebackers to me are smart. I didn't have to used to have to spread my linebackers here back in the day because these safeties have better run fits. But because they're so slow and so bad at their run fits, spreading your linebackers are a lot better. Okay, that's going to allow them to at least stay outside. Your safeties will come up, and that's a way better way of trying to stop. This is an outside zone play, but it could be inside zone as well, and it's fine. All right, so this is how I will align to this type of formation. All right, and then we can play ball from there. All right, so that's how I would go against that. Now, we can also jump into the under front. Okay, that would be another version of that here. This one gives you 5 guys on the line of scrimmage, which is beautiful. So now we can call a variety of coverages. All right, let me just go with cover 3 seam. All right, and we can now get this type of look. This look is, I've talked about this to the guys in the Patreon. Under is probably the best overall run front. It's a big part of what the Wade Phillips scheme has. Okay, the only difference in the under front out of both schemes is that sometimes this guy right here, this 5 technique, is in 4-3. He's wider, and in the 3-4, he's inside. Okay, but it really doesn't make a huge difference. The one thing I would do is user this guy right here and spread my linebackers here just to get this guy a little bit wider. Okay, that's a little bit better. All right, so again, stretch play, you don't know which side is going to go to, but at least you're in good shape with the underfront. I personally use the underfront when I get into like the red zone or short yardage. Okay, you can also spread your linebackers, all right, and kind of use a little bit of, hey, I'm going to send backer, which would be an inside backer. Okay, so now, of course, I'm being a little bit undisciplined, a little bit unsound, but just getting that extra guy to come up in there sometimes forces the issue. But that's not something I do most of the time. That would be like a third down situation where I think somebody's going to run. And I probably wouldn't even spread my linebackers. I would just blitz him from his original home position. Okay. So that's the beginning of running some of the base defenses versus, to me, I didn't cover all the runs because I feel like the defense in general does a nice job. I wanted to cover the most important run, which is stretch. And then if you guys have any questions about how to stop some of the other runs that you're going to get, we'll talk about it more because we're going to have to learn how to stop the gun run. We're going to spend some time on that. But that's the base part of the defense if you want to run the 4-3. Right. In the next clip, we're going to come back and run nickel, our big nickel package, not big nickel over G. We're going to run regular nickel with three safeties on the field versus the same running plays, okay, from the same formations we just did. And then we'll progress into one back and gun runs. Okay, guys, so now we're into the part where we're going to learn how to stop the run versus two backs or versus two tight ends, but we're going to use nickel and we're going to create our own big package. So if you have an under center formation, the first thing is to use the over front or use the big nickel front. Those are the two. Okay. If you think it's an outside run, use over. If you think it's a inside run, use big nickel. All right. And I'll explain why. Big nickel, go to over, and then change your personnel at the bottom. Use the right stick and change it. I like to go to big nickel, right? That puts my starting strong safety down at the nickel spot. In this case, this is a good guy. Delpit is pretty good. Now, understand nickel over cover one hole is actually not that great versus under center. And the reason why is because they give you 2-3 techniques. I don't understand why they do that, but they do. All right. But if you want to use cover one, this is why I have cover one contain in there. Okay, because it actually aligns a little bit better. Let me just show you how it looks default if you pick this versus I Formation Pro. It puts both the safety and the strong safety, both safeties actually, are going to be over on the right hand side. And this is okay, I guess, if you know the run is coming this way, but it's horrible if there's anything going to the left, okay? We would like to have more of that 4-4 look, that cover three shell look with safeties opposite of each other. So just make sure in your audibles you have the defense you want to get to. Like I want to get to cover one contain. Just call something like cover three seam. Cover three seam is going to put your guys alignment wise the way you want. They're going to be spread, right? The two safeties are on opposite sides, right? It looks like an old school 4-4 defense, right? So then at this point, now you check into cover one contain, and then now they would play cover one contain, but they'll play it from the alignment that I like. It's even better. This guy went wider. It's even better. So this is how you're going to start, okay? The good thing and why this is so simple, guys, is that as long as you use one of the linebackers, right, who probably doesn't have a man assignment, just put yourself in like a hole, put yourself in whatever you want, a spy, or just blitz yourself, right? Attack. And the areas you want to really attack, again, are going to be the bubbles. So the first bubble is if you think the run is going strong, you really want to attack this C gap bubble, okay? You don't want to be a pure robot because if the ball does go inside, like on an ISO play, boom, we're going to fit in here. So, guys on the Patreon, I've talked about this. And if you want to join the Patreon, if you're buying this separately outside the Patreon, is the type of run fits that you have, right? Run flows. So, if you get like a fast flow or an outside flow, then you need to fit this gap right here, okay? You're running, if you get a tight flow or an inside flow, most likely you have to fit the gap right here. Okay, so that's a big part of the defense. If you want to just be froggy and just let this guy blitz, you can. And then now you could do the same thing over here. If it's a wide flow to the right, you just go fast out this way. If it's a tight flow coming right at you, right, or to the right, you just have to be able to fit here, right? And if it's going outside to the left, you just play it and become the extra player. So it's kind of one of those things where, and when I said tight flow, I actually did say I didn't say it right. But if the guard pulls to the right or the fullback goes to the right, you want to fit into this gap, okay? But in general, you want to be a fast flow player, and you can get away with it from the same idea that I told you, where if you blitz a guy, you're feeling much better to have five guys attacking, and then if you want to use this guy, you want to be the sixth guy attacking. That makes it really good, okay? So, but the main trick again is you have to do a little bit of manipulation to the game if you want to get into the cover one contain. Now, the cover one hole, like I had said, gives you 2-3 techniques, so don't use it. But there is one thing that I do if you ever get caught in it for some reason, or defense that maybe you don't, let's say somebody audibled or whatever. Don't worry about the safeties right now. But what I'm going to do is, again, goes back to the same idea of the 4-3 wide. I'm going to squeeze the front. And that's going to give me that nice little two eyes right here, right? You get two eyes. Now they are slanting back out, all right? We can easily just slant the line to the right or slant them inside if we want, all right? We can do whatever we want there. But that guy right there allows you, those two eye techniques allow you to be able to run and hit with these two backers. And again, I would use her most likely the backer to the open side, the one away from the tight end with no tight end on the line. Because if I do get weed leak or something like that, lead weak, then I can attack. So anyway, this is a power left, right? And as long as I can box that play and make it cut back inside, I'm in pretty good shape. All right. But again, we don't really want to be in that defense. We want to be in, from a structure standpoint, I'd rather it be the safety is on the opposite side. So cover three. Let's go against slot. Let's go against stretch, since that's we always have to talk about this, right? So the great thing about this, just in general, guys, this is where slot formations don't mess with you. This is the beginning of why so many people run uh now a big nickel defense, okay, even versus 21. Because you saw how it kind of, I didn't really talk about it, but versus base personnel, you don't have as many coverages. We don't even have three seam at a 43 wide. Okay. And then now also, anytime I got slot formations, my linebackers would get displaced and they would be sitting there as an overhang, apex player. And I don't want that. I want these two guys. I want these two best linebackers. I want them to run and hit. Right. But in general, we're going to get now an extra guy to this side. So this is kind of similar to what we had when we were going against the 43. I'm not a huge fan of how he's so far inside, okay? But we do have an extra player here because we're not corners over, we're playing default, who can fit versus the run late, okay? So again, I would just either leave the front alone or potentially squeeze it, which I'm going to talk about that more later. We have a different front that plays that better. But I'm going to sit here in this open B gap, right? I'm going to get myself like over the guard, over the tackle. I'm sorry, just in case that ball does come over there. Otherwise, I'm just going to run and play ball. And stretch versus the nickel defense, it just plays it naturally better than it does if you use over or you use the 4-3 base defenses this year. Even under doesn't play it that great. So, but this is, again, we have safety down here. As long as he's a good player, he'll fit it in the right angle. You see how he's coming outside. That's great. Everybody's running to where they have to get to their gaps. It's just more sound. There's no run throughs here necessarily. There's nobody who's going to come scot clean, but it's just sound. And then now, from a coverage standpoint, I can play cover one, contain. I can play cover four. I can play cover six. I can do a lot of different things. Okay. So I wanted to play cover two, and this is what some people do sometimes is say, you know what? We're just going to blitz the corner, right? We're going to stand up, we're going to press everybody and blitz the corner. Again, this is part of the defense where you're going to have to do a little bit more than just play the defense straight up. You're going to have to do stuff like that and bring the corner off the edge. Bring some of your flat defenders and just give up the flat, or try to overcompensate with your user, all right? So that's one way to run it. The other way that I want to stop it is go and call actual big nickel G. If you see big nickel G, I'm going to let's just call cover one. Let me see how it gets lined up. Let's go against power again. And we get the same thing with all these extra guys. But the main thing is that this player here, the defensive end, is aligned already head up to inside leverage on the tight end. So you don't have to worry about squeezing anymore. It pretty much squeezed it for you. Even look at this player, right? Everybody's tight. All right. So the actual front is really good versus that. Now, because they're so tight and the way he was lined up to start, I wouldn't mind actually just taking a chance sometimes and leaving my safety down, right? And just having to be the edge of the world over here as a cutback player. But that may not be the best looking front versus that. Let's take a look at it if we do the same thing. I actually like this one here. Weak blitz one. Again, there's a lot of variety when it comes to big nickel package. But I love this look, that walk down look. You get that extra linebacker blitzing. You don't even have to bring him if you don't want. You can drop him in the coverage, right? You can put him in a, well, I thought you could put him in a deep and short coverage. But the point is, you leave it on. It's a really nice front. It looks good. You just hope that this safety can hold it down versus an outside hitting play. This is power, so it's an inside hitting play, but let's see how it looks versus stretch. Now this is, to me, stretch is the weakness of it because I prefer the DN to be outside versus stretch. But let's just do it worst case scenario, stretch versus a slot play. Okay, this one here, I'm bringing the safety down. So some of these blitzes in the big nickel package is coming from that 4-2-5 system where the weak safety will blitz off the weak side of the passing strength. Um, the weak side of the, yeah, it has to be passing strength. He's going away from passing strength. That's what the weak stands for. Let's just come out and cover one hole versus this. Let's see what it looks like. All right, so again, we kind of have the same situation where both these guys are covered from the right-hand side, which is fine. I'm actually okay with that. Let me just go in the cover three seam. I think that's probably the easiest way to teach. All right, so, but this is what I expect. Okay, so again, that edge is kind of vulnerable, I think. So versus outside zone, you're kind of taking a chance that everybody doesn't get reached. That's why I prefer to run this out of just regular over. Right, so that's where we are with that. Now let's talk about two tight ends. And this, to me, this is one of the nice things about this. I kind of did this yesterday in one of my games. I was playing somebody who was coming out a lot of ace personnel. I didn't feel comfortable being in my base personnel versus it because he had really good receivers too. So you can now definitely call any of these single high defenses and it's going to look marvelous, right? This looks similar to when I called 4-3 wide and I kind of squeezed everybody. I don't have two eyes. I actually have a three technique, but the main thing is look at both of these defensive ends. They are aligned, what do you call it, in the C gap right now. Okay. If you want to squeeze the line, you can and make them turn into five techniques, which is even tighter, harder for people to do what? Run trap, dive, things like that. Outside zone, they're going to have a little bit of an advantage on you. You're going to have to try to overrun with one of your backers. But even if you just left this alone, guys, again, I would play, there's no open side anymore. Okay. So I would just play the open B gap. To me, this is the biggest gap here. So I would just kind of get myself in the gap so that if the ball does come, I can just fit that play nice. But I feel like outside zone is pretty much eaten up when it comes to that formation. It's a nice looking formation. You don't have to squeeze unless you think, it's some sort of really like a trap or something. But you can also get away with calling big nickel. I'm sorry, that was big nickel. You call over here, just call your 4-3 nickel. Sorry, nickel over, cover one, right? So that was big nickel. Cover one holes and give you that funkiness, so you're gonna have to squeeze the line like that, which is fine. You can do that. Let me get just cover one hole. Contain. Contain is out there. If you do call contain, you have to also think about putting one of these guys into a normal pass rush. Okay, at least. All right. If you get a guy that's scrambling, you let this guy stay contained and let this guy normal pass rush. That's another way to get sacks this year. But we'll talk about that later. But here again, now you get the 9 techniques. This is much better versus stretch. You have to just be able to hold down the world over here. A lot of area right there, but you'll feel good versus stretch. If you think it's a team that can run an inside hitting play like dive or zone or counter power, then you might want to look into squeezing your line if you're an over. So we come out and cover one contain. All right. And now we're going to squeeze the line. I can make any other adjustments. I'm going to play with the B gap side guy right here in case the ball comes that way, which it does. Right. And we just try to fit that up. So squeezing the line versus an under center formation is huge. In general, if you're in the nickel over front, we're going to be squeezing the line a lot. And again, it's to get the edges really to get down into where they need to be so we don't get gashed in the C gap. And this is something that when you watch the Cleveland Browns, they do not just play wide 9 all day. That's the thing that's a misconception from a lot of people. They think because you're a wide nine defense, you sit in wide nine. No, it's just the personality of what you do. It's like saying I'm a quarters team and I don't play anything else. I don't play cover one. Like, no, you're gonna play cover one too. You're gonna call some other defenses. It just that's what you like to hang your hat on when it comes to the personality, and also describe as a mentality of the defense, not just the personality of what you're actually doing on the field. Okay. So that is the beginning of using a big nickel package versus under center formations. Let me just see if I have any dive. I usually have dive plays here. Let's do this one. Ace slot. That's a hard formation to stop if you come out in normal defense. So let's go big nickel, cover one contain. Everybody's lined up. I'm going to squeeze the front here, right? The open side B gap is happens to be over here. Even though there's another one over here, I just feel like this one's more important, right? And we just play ball. Somebody broke a block there. Good job by the D tackle. But again, squeezing the D line, I always feels like just does a nice job, right? I don't know what it is, but they just hold down the middle of the defense so much better than if you let it just play out naturally. All right. Now you can get away with just letting this play out naturally. You don't have to squeeze this, but you are vulnerable for getting some more single blocks and guys getting a little bit more yards. So just be aware of that. If you really don't like to squeeze the front, then just in this situation, live in the big nickel over G world and you'll feel just as good. Okay. So that's that. Now, the last front I'm going to talk about from the nickel front is coming out in 33 Cub. Right. So 33 Cub in real life, what they would do is take, reduce down one of the big defensive ends. So most likely, like it could be Smith, it could be Garrett. It doesn't matter. So they just let it play out and they let the other linebacker step up and come off the edge. Okay. So in this case, they had, Tikataki coming off the edge, but maybe I would use probably, hold up. I don't know if the inside backers could do it. No, it has to be an outside. Oh, no, it could be inside backer. Whoever is your other starting linebacker could be that guy, right? So let's just say it's number 6 coming off the edge. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this formation because of I feel like the 3 techniques don't do a good job. I feel like they still get reached a lot. But if you want to just keep it authentic to like what's real life football, this is an example of it. So again, oops, I called the wrong defense. I'm going to show you real quick the 33 lining up in it right away versus wide zone. Let's flip it this way. So this is where we're at, right? And wide zone going to the left, they still do a great job of reaching everybody, and it's just really hard to stop. So one of the adjustments I'm going to make, and this is more for gun personnel, not really for under center. So I really don't want to run this versus under center, but I will shift the line to the tight end side, to the run strength side. Okay. I know there's 2 tight ends, but right now there's receivers on the left too. So to me, the strong tight ends to the left. And just doing that by itself, oops, ran the wrong way, allows for better run fits. Okay. So let me just do that one more time. I'm going to take the line and shift it to the left. So it's kind of like an over solid front. It's a really heavy front to the left. And it's going to play out a little better for you to do that. Now, this is going to be more used when we actually come out versus gun formations, okay? But that's one way of doing it if you really want to get into that type of front. Now, the other thing you can do, which I like, is come out and nickel over whatever it is and actually just call an audible. So when you're in the 4-down defensive world, you can audible to the 3-down world, and that's what would happen, okay? So I don't know what happened here with this player. I just shifted him. He went over to where he needs to. What happens is the defensive end gets up and comes running over, and your outside linebacker comes here. So we can get into the 3-down world from the 4-down world. Unlike if you're a 3-4 team, you can't do that. So this is kind of cool. Let's just say somebody comes out, and we're going to talk about this more, especially when it comes to the passing plays. Somebody comes out I formation, right? We come out and just nickel over, cover one, and we just audible quickly and nice and easy to just nickel through 3 Cub, right? And all of a sudden, somebody who thought they had all the angles, now they're probably worried, like, oh, snap, what's going on? I would consider moving the guys over here like this versus any play and then let it play out. So you can get that authentic 5-down kind of Cub/Bear style defense by audibling to it. And you're seeing me do this in my game sometimes just to give people a headache. It's kind of cool. It's a nice little change up, right? All right. So that is really the overview of how to run fit versus under center runs. And again, I would probably go into games if you want to be like real life. It depends on your roster, but I would probably use the 4-3 under stuff versus one wide receiver groupings. So like 13, 22 personnel, short yardage situations, teams that are just going to bludgeon you and try to run the ball like it's 1985. Okay. Or, yeah, that's that. And then I would look at potentially just living in nickel world. If you have enough plays, if your league allows you to call plays at this amount of rate, because you don't have that many plays here, but you can live in the overworld, you can live in the cub world, and you can also live in the big nickel world versus under center. And then when we get to the gun, we'll start getting back to more wide nine defense. Okay. All right. So let's just get stop for this point here, and then I'll see you on the other side when we start talking about the next thing. All right. So let's talk about stopping the gun run game, which is a huge part of everybody's offense. And it really starts with mostly inside zone. Okay. So let's just start there. And I think this is one of the things that um, makes the wide nine really, really good without having to do a whole lot of adjustments is just basically coming out in a wide nine. Again, I'm going to talk about essentially just, talking about cover one and cover three to start. And then I'll talk a little bit about some two high shells, what to do versus that. But versus cover one and cover three, which is what we do most of the time. All right. You're going to get these 2-3 techniques if you call nickel wide. Okay. Which to me is really good by itself. Both of these defensive tackles, what it does is makes it really tough for people to run the dreaded inside zone from the gun. Okay. Just by itself. All right. But by itself, though, there's still a lot of space in this middle area. You basically have two A gaps open, and that's not the best thing all the time. So what I like to do, and the generic rule that I use, is slant the line or shift the line opposite of the running back. Okay. So running back's on the right, we just go shift the line to the left. All you have to do is press left on the left stick, and then, left on the directional pad, left on your directional pad, and then left with the left stick here. Okay. If it was the running back was on the other side, we would go opposite. Okay. And what I do is I use the linebacker, whatever his assignment is, to the running back. Okay. And I usually align right over the running back. This does two things. First thing in the passing game, if you don't know and you haven't played enough, you know that, a lot of guys like to throw the ball to the running back, especially out the flat. The computer doesn't do a good job of playing man to man on flat routes, running back routes in general, wheel routes, things like that. So you have to basically pick up the slack and user that guy. So that's going to be a little bit of a challenge, but I guarantee you it's very rewarding when you stop somebody and you're using the linebacker on the running back in man-to-man situations. And we are going to play some zone stuff where you don't have to always be in man coverage, okay? But that's where we're going to start with our alignment. So we're going to get right over him. We have the line shifted away. And in this case scenario, this is one of these plays that's similar to stretch. The way I showed it to you in the very beginning video is that, hey, this gap right here usually comes scot-free. Okay. It has nothing to do with really anything else besides really shifting the line. Okay. So if I shift the line, and let's get that linebacker out of here. I don't know why. Okay. I don't know why they're stepped up in there. Hold on one second, guys. All right. You don't have to have your user all the way over here. You can do it from here sometimes too, right? You just leave them in this base alignment. Let's go back to our base alignment. Let me just run a play one time and just get myself reset real quick. Um, Again, if we just stay in our base alignment, hopefully the linebacker doesn't walk up, right? And I just shift the line and sit right here. There's a good chance you can still get it too, right? And come right through. I just like the alignment over the top of the running back. To me, it really makes this almost a near 100% chance you're going to run through. Nobody's going to even see you coming. And also, it puts you in better position to cover the running back. Instead of being here and having to chase the guy, it's just better to be here. Okay. And this is going to help us when it comes to some of our blitzes that we do later on, too. Okay. When we green dog and stuff like that. So, this is the position. Shift your line. okay, and just come through and don't miss a wide open tackle. So that's the very first play in the running game that you're going to have to deal with, obviously. We're in a single high shell, so you're going to have two backers in the box, and you can go from there. Now, you see how this guy keeps walking up? That's okay. You can actually let this sit out, all right? Or you can actually also blitz this guy. This goes back to the philosophy of bringing a single linebacker blitz. In the chart, in the ready list, I didn't have a whole lot of it listed of the single linebacker blitzes or safety blitzes, but right now you can see you're going to manually do this on your own. When you get a feel for things, that's what you do. This is going to guarantee that you're definitely going to come scot clean. Sometimes he will come scot clean too, just so you know. All right, so that's just inside zone, which is what most people run. Okay, now if somebody is running a lot of counter plays, which used to be popular back in the day, I got gashed on it a couple days ago in one of my leagues, and I kept making the same mistake over and over until I realized, like, oh wow, okay, all I have to do is just sit in my base defense. So versus regular counter, okay, if I was to slant the line away from the back, right? Let's just get that linebacker out of here. I don't know why I keep stepping up in the gap. I have to look into that. If you do this, right, and people are running some sort of counter or a guard is pulling back the opposite way and you run in there, there's a chance there's a wide open gap to the right hand side, okay? Especially if it's more of a true counter action. So doing this is not great versus counter teams. You can get away with it and still stop the run, as you see I'm doing okay versus it. But versus a skilled runner, they're going to probably potentially get back over the top and make plays here, even though it looks like I'm doing a good job. This is an example here. If you get a guy who's using inside zone and counter to just basically just stay in the base defense, just stay in the wide defense. All right, keep these guys wide. Okay, in three techniques, and then just play ball. Right, and then what that does is, in my opinion, just keeps the middle of the field it makes it harder to run both plays. Okay, and definitely makes it much harder to come back to this side because you have a three technique. So let me just rewind a little bit and let me give a little more detail. I apologize. When I said shift the line away from the back, what do you get? Well, you get a wide four-eye technique, right? So he really serves as a regular three technique, but he's coming from a little bit wider. So he's technically a four eye. He's inside leverage of the tackle, but he's going to hit that B gap. And this is the angle that you want the guy to hit. This is what it's going to take away a lot of those inside zone plays. If you leave it alone in their natural position, you would say, oh, well, he should be able to still take care of the B gap. But no, unfortunately, in this game, sometimes those guys get reached, okay? And that's the bad thing about not having a defense where you can do this. And only the wide defense can give you that nice angle, okay? And then also over here, you get a head up two technique. Even though he's kind of shooting back out to the B gap, he's going to still do a decent job of occupying the center and taking care of double teams. And he's going to do a good job there. So that's the idea of doing the shift. But honestly, man, it's not even necessary. It's not 100% necessary, especially versus a guy that's going to run counters or traps or things like that. You don't need to have your line shifted. Okay. So if you get a guy again that's playing um, defense where they're going to be offense. I'm sorry, where they're going to be running all types of runs, not just inside zone. You could do that. Then also just remember, blitzing the linebacker too also helps in general. Okay, sometimes what happens is the defensive end comes clean. Sometimes the linebacker comes clean. Okay, so you can really keep people like they might think this is like easy running right here. Like, oh, this looks so easy, right? But it's not. It really isn't. You kind of set people up for failure. All right. So that's the generic rule versus all the gun runs. So let me see. I don't have that many here, but we get stuff like this. This is always a problem play that people run, right? As long as you can get the matchups with the DBs correct, which in this case, this formation takes care of that. If somebody calls, uh, what is it, Y flex or tight end trips flex, then your linebacker is going to end up covering number 3 here against this formation. So just be careful of that. That's really a topic for another video. But again, I'm just going to shift the line, right? I'm just going to stand over the running back. And, in general, you should be able to come through and make a tackle at the line of scrimmage, right? That's a really nice thing you can do. But again, if you just left it alone, all right, if you just left this alone, I don't know why I spread that guy out. You can still kind of get away with this a little bit, but it's a little bit dicey if you just left it alone like that. That's the game you have to play. All right. Now that's the gun run stuff that you're gonna deal with. That's the best front, in my opinion, to get into. You can also get into the 3-3 cub if you want to. Um, Again, I am not a huge fan of this. This is another, okay, here's an example where the linebacker is lined up on the wide receiver, so that's not going to work there. Apologize. You'd have to call the zone pressure at look out of this, but I'm more focusing on the fronts. This to me would be like a sometimes thing, you know? You're gonna have to be living in this world of, okay, I'm not gonna be in the box unless I need to. I gotta kind of like cover down on this guy. But if right now you would think again, right? Hey, you have a three technique, but I told you when these guys are this tight, sometimes they still get what I call reach. Watch. Sometimes that gap is still wide open. You see how that gap is wide open right there? And that's a shame, right? So what you have to do is anytime you're in this front, always shift your line, your D line away from the running back. Okay, it's the same rule that you would have if you were in regular 3-3, regular 4 nickel wide. It's just shift, okay, and that shift really makes it extreme, but it takes care of this run, right? Just inside zone. Now the ball has to cut back. All right, that formation is a little bit of a pain in the butt because of the situation. So you'd have to compensate with potentially, this player here, right? That's the only bad thing. So you'd have to sit there, and then you have to become the free player. But that's not the best way to me to play defense. To me, you line up in this front for pass rush purposes, and then also to maybe intimidate bad players to not run the ball. But good players know they can still run the ball versus that. All right. So the wide is there. Now you can use over versus gun run teams. Let's come out in three seam. Let's just switch it up. Right. I wouldn't use it versus that formation, but you can use over. Okay. Let me just do one normal again inside zone play. The key is here. What's the rule? You want to make sure your three technique is always opposite the back. Okay, so there's no shifting here, but because we are in a symmetrical defense like cover three and cover one, we can now flip the defense. Okay, flip the entire defense. Everybody changes sides, and then now you see at least your three technique is over here. Even though he's still shooting into the A gap here, he's in better position to at least cloudy this thing up. And I would just treat it the same. I want to play over the top of the running back, and I'm going to try to come through. This is not going to be as clean as the wide front, but it's still pretty sound. If you really want to take it to the next step, again, shift your whole defense. This is over. This is just regular over. This isn't wide. Okay. And then I would probably slant the line to the left. See how I just moved the defensive line from their original positioning? They were going inside. Now they're going to the left, at least to try to slow down some of this inside run. That has to be the first thing you think about is try to slow down the inside run. But as you can see, it's not 100%. This is what I used to do for so long before I started using the wide front. It's just make sure I was an over, make sure the three technique was on this side, and just try to ball out. But honestly, it's not the best thing, okay? But maybe you want to use it as a change up, and you should be okay some of the time. If you do get a team, though, that is running different types of runs, then you're kind of in a situation where you're in a guessing match. That's why I like the odd, that's why I like the wide better. But again, if you know a team is going to be running a lot of like counter plays, right? Guys are pulling, things like that. You definitely want to probably try to be in the wide front, but you definitely want to make sure at least your three technique is away from the back. This is one of those harder things. I do have an advanced level version of this actually. All right. If your team is running inside zone to the left, counter to the right, or this type of counter where it's going from right to left, there is another version of this where you can shift your line, okay, out of the odd. This is out of nickel over. You can shift your line away from the tight end, okay, and what it does out of this front is almost gives you an odd look. You see how there's like 3D linemen here. You have a zero technique, you have 2-5 techniques or head up techniques. It kind of looks like an odd front. It looks like a 3-3 odd. So if you can't do this, like let's say you can't run 3-3 odd or you don't want to, this to me is one of the better ways to get an odd looking defense versus a team that runs a lot of counters, traps, things like that. You want to get that. You want to get the center covered, and you want to get those two head up players over the tackle. So again, what I'm saying is that if you get stuck in a position where you don't want to run wide, you can run over. The first way of doing it again is always put your back put your D line, flip your defense how many times you need to. Sometimes you have to do it twice, away from the back. That should be okay versus inside zone. But if you get a team that's going to run different types of plays like powers and traps and all that type of stuff, and you want to stay in over, just shift your line away from the tight end, okay? And you're going to get this type of look here where it's kind of like an odd looking defense, okay? See how these guys, I mean, this almost looks exactly the same as if you called 3-3 odd, except this guy would be standing up right here instead of his hand down. But he would be rushing for the most part anyway, okay? You could play around with your adjustments. You could put this guy by using left on the left stick, left on the directional pad, I'm sorry, and then pressing up, playing outside. You can get this guy to play, what do you call it? A two gap technique, this defensive tackle. All right. So there's ways to play in a 4-3. A lot of people think you can't stop the run unless you're in three down front. You can stop the run out of four down front. You can use three down um, ideas. Just all you got to do is just do it different. Okay. Again, this stuff here, guys, is 2-4 odd, 3-3 odd. It's in the playbook. It's just, we don't have a lot of plays in there right now. I'm going to add some more once we start adding some more blitzes at the back end of this book. But you can run this as a base defense if you feel like you need to. So it's there for you. If you're using the custom book, it's there for you. You can put some regular coverages behind it and feel pretty good about that. Okay. But we'll start with that. So we went through the gun runs. Again, wide is my suggestion. Now, what happens if they come out and under center, but it's 11 personnel? It's 3 receiver sets. Okay. So this is kind of like the next to last thing that we haven't talked about. So let's just come out in regular 2x2. Wide front is not recommended in this situation. We talked about that a little bit before when it was just when it was 21 and 12 personnel. Why? Because it's kind of hard to do what? To get there's too much space in the interior against an under center set, which can be easily, people can easily run inside zone or dive or trap plays. Okay. So we're going to jump back into over. This is where over has its strength again. And we're going to come out and just like we did versus 21 and 12, we're going to come out and over, right? We can let it play. We can play ball from here if you want to. You don't have to do any type of squeezing. It's up to you. But if I got a guy who's running a lot of inside zone, I'm just going to squeeze the line, just play ball, and I'm going to use the linebacker in the open B gap, okay? And I'm just going to play ball from there. And now the main thing is that, let me talk about one thing here. So this is kind of a rule that it's kind of hard for me to make sure I don't overstep my boundary here. I don't like walking up in gaps with linebackers. Okay, that's old school from where I used to play. People used to cause nanos, and nowadays people will talk about hovering. We don't do that here in this defense. That's not what we're here for. We're a sim defense. So we like to call ourselves a sim defense. What I would do is you would see me go a little bit further out with this linebacker, kind of like head up over the tackle, and you would see me step up to like 2 yards. Okay, and again, it's not because I'm trying to influence anything with the pass when it comes to protection. It's more because when this ball comes right at me, I want to have a good outside angle to fit this run. Usually I don't come scot-free. I'm not sure what happened there. But usually that guard's going to come off and try to block me, okay? I just want to meet him sooner, and I want to meet him with a good angle right there. You see that? You see how I went inside too? That was a poor job by me. I don't know why I got that animation. But he's going to double, but then he's going to quickly come off and hit me. So I just want to make it. I just want to make sure that when he does, that it's going to be right at the line of scrimmage. I'm not going to be sitting back here. If I just sit back here with this bad angle, it's going to be look like this. And a lot of times, I don't know why he's not blocking me all the time, but a lot of times he's going to just come and just kick me out. And if I'm 5 yards back, that block is going to happen, and I'm going to get like the hole's going to open up wide, kind of like what I kind of did there. All right. So again, what I like to do is to move up a little bit to maybe like 4 to 3 yards, get a little bit wider, okay? Just so when I take on this guy, I don't know why that's happening. I can keep the ball inside of me. I think that's an animation that the computer's doing. I think I have to use 2 hands here. It's hard because I'm trying to run the ball too. All right, and just kind of take that on. I guess if you come free, you can come free. But that's the area that I always play on. So like even if the formation was 3-by-1, right? I usually use, or usually most of the time, the open side is usually over here. If you guys haven't noticed, most of the time people put their tight ends on the right hand side, and this is the open side for the most part. Okay, so whatever the run is, dive, right? I didn't squeeze the line there, so that's on me. See how dive gets so many yards like that? Now, if I was to just squeeze the line, I'm not saying I'm going to stop dive. I could just do that at 2-by-2 as well. I'm not saying I'm going to stop the dive play, okay? But it's going to at least make it a little bit tougher for him to get through. That was a bad example. You hope your front side linebacker could be better than that too. I don't know why he's playing so poorly. But again, it goes back to squeezing. And at least, I played, I'm guessing there, right there, guys. But if I had dive or inside zone, those are the two plays. I really can't play the dive with this guy, all right? So I'm going to have to play the inside zone. But if it's dive, then I can sit there and just read it out, right? I mean, I'm supposed to read it out myself too. So that's just one way I like to play. So that's one example. You can always now also jump back into your big nickel, right? Which gives you a very similar alignment with your players. Actually, I have a blitz there. That's an under front. Let me not do that right now. Save that for another time. Let's just get in one hole versus inside zone. All right. So here I got a 7 technique, right? And I got now a shade technique right here. So it's a little bit tighter. We don't need to squeeze the front here, guys. I wouldn't suggest it, but you have to know that this gap has become a little bit bigger now for you. So you're gonna have to take that on, potentially in more space. But that's how I start. So we have cover 1, cover 3 seam. Okay, don't worry about the audibles; they're not set up there. Now let's talk about quickly. What would you do if you want to play a 2 high defense? Because we can't just be playing 1 high defense all day, right? So let's go back to the gun. Let's go back to spread, which makes it harder for you because you can't have 2 linebackers in the box. But my rule is this, okay? There's 2 different ways I like to do this. Well, you could jump back and if you want to stay in a single high defensive look, guys, you could jump back into just base defense and all that stuff, which is another thing we could talk about later, the penny package. But the wide front has this really cool thing, and this is actually one of the Patreon members told me this. One of the guys in the coordinator crew told me this, and I haven't really fully put it out yet until now. So if you are in nickel wide, let's say you want to play quarters. Let's say you want to play cover 6. Let's just play cover 6, okay? Because that's what we need to do more. Anyway, cover 6. Now, we want to play the same rules, use the same rules that we had. We're going to take our D line, okay, and we're going to shift them away from the back. So that's what that looks like, right? There's only one linebacker in the box, so you can't take this guy. This guy is responsible to be an apex player between the tight end over the tight end over here, right? He's splitting the difference between the tackle and the tight end. So if you brought him back into the box, that would be cheating, okay? We're not going to do that right now, okay? We're just going to play with the lone linebacker in the box, okay? And we are going to play on the front side away from the back. So we're going to line up basically kind of similar to if we were lined up on the back over here. It would be like lined up on the tackle-ish. Here we're going to be doing something similar. We're going to line up kind of like over this tackle-ish, okay? And the ball is going to come to you. Now, most likely this ball is definitely going to cut back, but don't come running in there too fast. Don't just assume and just run in there. Got to read out the path to the back and just mirror his footwork. So he's coming at you, right? And if he decides to keep on going outside, you have to stay there. If he decides to cut inside, you're good there too. So one back in the backfield, okay? We are now in cover 6. It's not the best defense, but at least you're going to get some rallying. You're going to get some guys coming from the other side. At first, when I wanted to do this, guys, I kind of thought, hey, let me just come stand over here. I got my ass ripped by just, he would just run out the front side sometimes. If the 3 technique ever lost, it would be horrible. Okay, so that's just how we play it. Not the best looking front, but here's the price of admission. This is what the guy told me, okay? Now, let's get into like quarters or something because I think it might be better. This is where you're going to need quarters if you want to do some disguising. So let's call quarters. Cover 6 has, not the best disguise ability because you have a deep half. But if you were to show blitz with this, and this only happens at a wide, okay? So you go triangle on PlayStation, right? And then you use the left stick to show blitz. This is one of the only fronts in nickel that shows the safety down, okay? And that type of look. Now, if I was to do this type of look, I would go back to using this player and I would now put him back in the box. So even though I'm a flat defender and I know I have to cover number 2 if he runs a flat, I still want to have this single high look. It's a beautiful thing. It looks like cover 3. This is the only defense that does this. Now, the order of operation has to be this too, if I'm not mistaken. You can't shift your line until you actually show blitz. So show blitz, then shift your line. Oh, maybe not. It didn't work there. Let me try that again. shifting your line may not be an option if you show blitz, just so you know. That might be one of the problems, but let me just try something real quick. If I shift my line first, actually, wrong defense, excuse me. Let's go back to cover four. Cover four, same spread formation, okay? So if I shift my line first and then I show blitz, yeah, it's going to go back. So that's the only bad thing. You can't have your line shifted to the left. But you do get the idea that maybe people are going to see this and they're not going to check into it. They're not going to want to run it. They're not going to want to run the ball versus this front, right? Because you can easily come out here and cover four. And if you had a defense where it was one of your audibles was the cover three, you can do the exact same thing. So let me just go and put it in there. I don't know why it's not showing up, guys. I apologize. Here we go. So let's go cover four. Let's go inside zone. All right. And then now let's go just check into cover three seam, right? And that looks similar. Now let me try this one more time because I do believe I can get the corners to play off if I want. I think if I do it before the actual show blitz, the corners will stay off. So I'm going to back the corners up manually. All right. And then I'm going to take this guy because we're going to make this look like a shift. We're going to show blitz, right? Yep. And then I come in the box. That looks like cover three. But now we're playing cover four, which is really cool because this this quarter defender will take two if he goes vertical from 5 yards. So it almost looks like man to man. And then this player over here will come over and basically take two vertical as well. But then, the great thing about that is that it's coming from the middle of the field. People might think, oh, let me just throw a little seam route to number two up the field. All of a sudden, you got a safety screaming over to make an interception. All right. So that's the cool thing about the wide front. You lose a little bit when it comes to being able to shift the line. But now I can play different things. Now, let me just go back to cover six. Let me just show you how smart the game is. If I was to show blitz here, oh, they do it anyway. Never mind. I thought that they don't bring down. I thought they actually would not bring down the safety. That's to the cover two side, so they do. Let me just see if I called cover two. Just taking a look at this with you guys. Yeah, show blitz is different with cover two. It just walks kind of like both safeties down. They won't bring both safeties into that cover three position. So just go through the coverages. This is the coverage in this book. So the only one that's left is nickel two trap, which is a zone pressure look. I'm just curious to see what they do with this because you could run two trap as well. Yeah, there's no reason to show blitz on this because we're already in a three high shell. My fault. Sorry about that. Excuse me. Let's go two man, last one here, and then one man, one robber. Okay. So again, two man. Yeah, show blitz doesn't do anything there. Can't do it there. So only cover four seems like it's the best way to go right now. Let's go with robber press. I'm sorry. Probably the same thing. Okay, well, that one actually gives a good look. So that's good. It kind of just labbed it on the fly right there, guys. I'm sorry I didn't do a lot of that, but this is a new tip from a member. So the coordinator guys got a preview of this guide already a couple weeks ago. So he went through and saw that, and that was pretty damn good. So that's the good thing. So if you did this if you tried this out of over, let me just show you, you know, it just does a generic bring the safeties up close to the box type of stuff, which isn't the worst thing in the world. You can do that if you want to. I'm just not a huge fan of doing that myself. If I want to get disguised, I like to walk the safeties down, like on those blitz looks, where they start walking towards the line of scrimmage. We could talk about that in a separate video. But yeah, I mean, we do it here. I have it set up here, even though this isn't really part of the Jim Schwartz scheme. If I want to show pressure, I like showing it like this because you can easily have that look, and then you can check into whatever defense you want, and the safeties stay in the position that they walk down to. So that's one of the ways that I like to show pressure. But I just wanted to make sure you guys knew that. That's a really good thing. So you don't have to feel like, oh, this whole defense is all about playing single high all day and showing your look. Nope, you can actually disguise your look a little bit. All right. So we'll talk more about disguising as we get through the rest of the book. But his coverages, are really simple, man. He doesn't really care too much about disguising too much. The only way he kind of gets into more of his disguising, talk about Jim Schwartz here, is by bringing some of those pressures that I just showed you, like these trap pressures, where it looks like cover three, but it's actually cover two invert. So that's the way he likes to disguise, and then that's about it. So When we have under center, okay, again, just a quick review, use over, okay, or use the over G, nickel over G, all right. If it's gun, I would stick with more wide, okay, unless you're going to use over or nickel over G and just put the three technique opposite the back. And you don't have to shift the line. I would just flip your defense, okay? So that's kind of where we are with the run defense versus the gun. And just a quick note at the end, I consider pistol formation same as under center. That's what most NFL coaches do. Pistol formation is under center to us because the runs that they can use are more like under center runs, more runs that kind of hit up the middle, trap type runs, things like that. All right. So we're good with the run defense for now. Trying to think, you know, I'm going to have a section on short yardage and goal line. So we'll talk about 4-4, split 4-4, 46, okay? And we'll go back over the under front one more time. But that's more of short yardage and goal line. This was more of just base run, first, second down, okay? And how to stop some of the most common plays. All right, I'll see you in the next part of the video. Okay, there is one more package that he likes to run, Jim Schwartz. It's called the penny package. If you are familiar with the Wade Phillips defense, you are also familiar with the idea of what he called single. And what it is a package where you are going to put three corners on the field, okay, and you're going to run your base style defense. So this is one reason why the base defense is still really a big part of this whole package. And what we're going to do is, and this is what I suggest, and this is what I'm going to suggest going forward, even for guys who run the Wade Phillips style defense. Take a look at running, putting for your strong safety. Most of the times, our strong safety isn't the most athletic. If he is, then you might want to keep him out there for this. But let's sub out your strong safety for a corner, right? And then whoever is your other, right now I put Emerson in for depth, okay? And then whoever is your actual free safety, let's make sure that he is a guy that can cover a little bit. At least he has 90 speed. Okay, that's the most important thing right now. Okay, so I think Thornhill is like a guy like that who is he has good speed. Okay, so I would keep him there. If your league allows you to play with four corners out there, then maybe you want to play with four corners just to keep yourself safe. Okay, but really we want to make sure that both our safeties are athletic enough to play man-to-man coverage. So one would be a corner, the other one would be your most athletic safety. So we're going to come out and we're going to call over wide cover one. Okay, and that's the defense that we're going to run primarily, if not exclusively, and also cover one contain. Okay, and so what we're going to do here is we're going to now play our front. We are in a wide nine front. Okay, so the wide nine front rules are what? You can let it out. You can just play ball, right, and just let it rock. You can if you want to. You don't have to move anybody. If you want to make sure it's extra stout, you're going to pinch your line. Okay. You're going to take your backer over here, that bubble B backer. That's who I would use her. That's just my opinion. But you can use her, the middle linebacker, right? And we're going to spread our linebackers just to get this guy outside. So he could play that outside D gap, really, if needed, or he could fold back into B gap. Okay. But the most important thing is that our strong safety, for the most part, usually comes over and covers the slot receiver. So you shouldn't have to make a whole lot of adjustments. But there will be some changes later on when we go up against gun formations where we have to flip the formation. So if we had to flip the formation, you see how the safeties switch, right? So this guy comes down, and now we have our strong safety, aka our corner, in the middle of the field. That's okay with him being in the middle of the field. That doesn't bother me. But what bothers me is, do you want to have this guy down covering man to man or potentially a really good slot player? That's what you have to look at. So that's part of the personnel stuff where we need to make sure that that guy's athletic. But from an actual run stopping front, we're really good versus most of the runs that you're going to see out of that under center formation. Even something like stretch bubble, right? So a lot of people like to run stretch bubble. This defense is good against the stretch in general. You want to make it better. We use our adjustments. And then everybody who knows how to stop stretch or how to stop bubbles is having a man defender on number two, the bubble guy, that usually takes care of there not being somebody to cover the bubble. Okay, takes that whole thing out of conflict. So I kind of fell into calling, fell into cover one this year. I've always been a cover one guy in general, but when it came to the defenses that I wanted to replicate, thank goodness that both of them are actually cover one based defenses. It makes life so much easier. A lot of the stuff that's the meta that you have to go up against. Okay. So that would be one way of playing against under center. You can also play over if you want to. I wouldn't really recommend it, but there's really no difference. Okay. You make your substitutions and you go and do the same thing. This is a case where if you did call over, just remember you don't want to squeeze the line here. Okay. This is just base over defense. Don't squeeze the line. All right. All I would do is potentially just spread the linebackers. Okay. But you can get some reps out of that one. And then the under defense allows you to also play some three seam, which is pretty cool. Under is going to give you that situation that I was talking about where you really kind of want to make sure that your safeties are both athletic. But let's just take a look at this. Let's put, sorry, Emerson here. And we're going to call cover three C. Actually, I call cover one hole by accident, but that's fine. We have cover one hole, right? In this case, we don't need to do much. If you trust your outside linebacker that he won't get reached on a stretch play, you're fine. If you're worried about him getting reached, I would just spread the linebackers, okay? Get him a little wider, right? That's what I would do. But you can run the same penny package from this look as well. So from under center, you're in really good shape. And the great thing is that you are now really like stout. You have players in the box who are closer to the action. Okay. Now let's say somebody tries to get you in the gun. Okay. So they're gonna try to come out and do the classic, hey, I want to spread you out and do all this stuff to get you to line up in something soft, a light box, whatever, and then they just run the ball, right? So they're hitting you with the college style of offense. Well, college style offense also doesn't ever really do well against teams that play cover one, and especially if you did the same thing where you wanted to keep yourself in base defense. Okay, but here is the time where I'm going to tell you this is why your safeties are important. You're going to have Emerson right now. He's fine, right? This is the corner who's playing safety. But you want to make sure you use the rules like we have when it comes to playing the gun defense. When we call nickel over, okay, what did I always say? Nickel over. You want to make sure that you can flip the defense to make the three technique be what? Opposite the back. So three technique opposite the back. That's what you need to do here if you're in regular 4-3 wide, okay? And that's going to obviously, as you saw, switch the safeties, and you don't know which side the back's going to be on. So that's part of the problem, okay? So if the back was on the opposite side, you would have been fine to stay in the defense. But if for some reason he's over on the right-hand side now, we got to flip the defense, and unfortunately, that's how it works. I would not recommend shifting the line or doing anything like that with this thing. Um, and I actually never really used the pinch from versus the gun. You can try it out. Let me know how it is, but I've really never done that. I don't think it's necessary. Okay, it's basically like I am in a over defense. Okay, I just have better people now. Just understand this: you're also at a disadvantage if you don't have a really good linebacker in this defense. Okay, in this 4-3 defense in general, I want my best linebacker to be my right outside linebacker on screen, which I think is the left outside linebacker in the book. All right. I want my best guy to be here, the most athletic guy. I should have said that earlier. I apologize, but it'll come up probably again later on. Okay. He's going to be a man to man coverage on the tight end for the majority of the day. Like I play with Fred Warner, and when I play with Fred Warner against Kyle Pitts, I like Fred Warner to be in the middle of the field because he can have some nice lurks in the middle. But when it comes to coverage, I'm just going to put the best player on their best player, and he, he's going to be out of the box here in this situation in Penny. So you have to rely on that. You have a guy that can cover over here. This is how it's different than if you were playing regular nickel. This would be at least a safety, right? So, but anyway, we have gun run. We flip the front, like we talked about. This is not the best three technique over here. I would rather him be wider, but we're okay. We're just going to do like we did versus in our wide front. We're just going to take our linebacker over the top of running back. We're just going to run through and look for that open hole and don't miss a wide open tackle because you're going to have one. Okay. So again, let me just show you again 4-3 wide, flip it so that the three technique is away from the running back. Take your linebacker, get over the top of that running back, and then go have fun. Happy hunting. All right. So we can play the run versus a team that wants to be real crazy and try to spread you out. We could just come out in our penny package. Now we can also do it from over. We can do it from under. Doesn't matter. We can do the exact same thing. I've really never done gun versus under unless it's in the red zone. I'm going to talk about that when I get to the red zone part of the playbook, part of the book. Okay. But that's where we are. And that is really it. If we ever get a pistol, again, I consider that under center rules. So I would probably get into the 43 wide and then over wide and then just squeeze the line. All right. So that's about it, man. Just want to talk about that penny package. You guys know you can use that anytime, anywhere. So on that ready sheet, I don't even think I have it written down as a separate package. I have it as part of the base package that you can use at any point during the game. Just don't forget about it. That's probably the hardest thing. Like and this is how I do it, guys. If I'm struggling in a game versus the run, I'll go to the pity package. Right. If somebody's going to spread run me, I'll use it like later on. Right. Or, if I know the guy, I'll use it from the beginning, but I use it as like a plan B. All right. All right, guys. I'll see you in the next part of the film.